Youngsters and darkening. The days when the long-distance fancier hardly trained his youngsters is long past. The attitude here is that quality will soon prove itself. The youngsters have to show their worth in the autumn nationals, and their plumage must be in a reasonable state by that time, and that's why they use the darkening system. The squeaker's loft is darkened from weaning to the beginning of July, from 5 in the evening to 9 in the morning. The windows are shaded both inside and out. This makes the loft really very dark. Even finding the drinker can be a bit of a problem. Cocks and hens remain together throughout the whole period of darkening. Darkening finishes on the 1st of July, and the sexes are separated. The cocks go into the right-hand section with the aviary. They have the freedom of the loft and the aviary. The hens are shut into the aviary during the day. A healthy solution in any case. The hens have a plentiful supply of fresh air in this sheltered aviary, and they seldom pair up together. It's possible a shortage of fresh air may arise in very hot weather, and that's to be avoided at all costs. In that case, the roller blinds are closed over the open windows. Then there's less sun and more fresh air in the lofts. An important event in the life of a young pigeon begins when the training baskets are first produced. The youngsters start training when they're 3 to 4 months old. In the first year of using darkening with training the youngsters, they were confronted with a nasty experience. Whether the birds were let out at 9 o'clock and trained or not, in both cases they suffered heavy losses and had to make a sharp about face. The sudden change from twilight to bright sunshine confused the birds. Nowadays, the birds have a period of adjustment of at least an hour in the aviary before being let out. As soon as the youngsters can cope with longer distances, the first trips out by car are planned. They're taken out personally by car at least 20 times before being sent off with the club. For their first time out, the birds are simply released in the garden. After basketing, they're left in the baskets for an hour before the toss. This method is used so that the birds quickly get used to the most stressful aspect of a racing pigeon's life, the basket. They progress to 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers, 15 kilometers, 20 kilometers and further. Once the young team has learned to cope with 100 and 200 kilometers and more, they still continue with the regular shorter distances. The distance is no longer the point, but the experience the young birds gain is of great importance. The final 20 kilometers must become routine. Silver is convinced that a race is decided in these final stages. You may not believe it, but in the course of an entire season, the youngsters are taken out some 100 times for training sessions. and a great deal of their success is due to this extensive training. A speedy start after the toss, getting into the lead in time, are two aspects that the young birds must be taught. Perfect lofts, perfect care. The row of splendid lofts faces south, an advantage during the cool springtime, a disadvantage at the height of summer when the temperatures rise. There is indirect ventilation in all the lofts through air intakes under the sputniks. Inside the lofts, the air intake can be regulated using these sliding grids. The ceiling in the corridor to the lofts is completely open, and that provides enough ventilation. The top of the lofts has been completely sealed off, and automated ventilation has been fitted recessed into the ceilings. The fresh air comes into the lofts from below, and the stale air is sucked away from above. The motor of the extractor system has 5 speeds. It's constantly on at the lowest setting, and during hot weather turned up as required. After the windows have been closed, any latecomers can still get in through these flaps. The automatic roller blinds are also a good solution for the widowers. The windows are opened, the blind rolled down, the bright sunshine is blocked out, and fresh air can still get in freely. Oxygen is the source of health of the pigeon, that's a fact. That's why these sheltered aviaries were built between the lofts where the birds can go out, winter and summer alike. They can take refuge there during the annual clean-out, or just pop out there for a bath. Silver Toy2's lofts are situated under high voltage cables, and the magnetic field associated with them could have a negative effect on the birds. That's why there's a copper wire fixed on top of the roof, which then spans the whole loft and is earthed with a copper rod. A further advantage is that when it rains, copper sulfate forms, which keeps the roof clear of moss. Twice a week it's bath time, for young and old birds alike. A pinch of kitchen salt is added to the bath water. Birds in top form like to take a dip. On return from a race, every bird has to have a warm bath. The legs are cleaned and the breast muscles lightly massaged. The 2 important advantages of this are the dirt from the basket is washed off, preventing infection, and the birds feel refreshed and calmed. Medical care. Silver prefers to use natural remedies rather than resorting to pills and potions. His vegetable infusion is served up some 4 days a week, both summer and winter. The kettle is filled with 30 litres of water, and Silver still wields the butcher's knife with flair. 2 bulbs of garlic are halved. Garlic purifies the blood. About 6 onions, because onions are good for the respiratory tract. About 10 carrots, carrots being good for the eyes. Not to be forgotten, a few slices of celeriac, for celeriac increases vitality. A couple of bunches of thyme, ideal for the respiratory tract. At the start of the season, when the birds are not yet in peak condition, a couple of chunks of sugar candy are added to the brew. Boil thoroughly, and this is the end result. While the tea is still on the boil, a small pinch of white alum is added. After cooling and diluting, the tea is ready for serving the next day. During the malting period, a good pinch of linseed is also added while boiling, obviously for soft plumage. You can't manage without, but the motto here is as little as possible. Trichomoniasis is a problem. They use as wide a variety of products as possible to prevent resistance building up. During the breeding and racing season, an extensive course of treatment is planned, using the correct dose, but it's given for a couple of days longer than prescribed. During the breeding and racing season, they also treat preventively against coli and paratyphoid. When an infection arises, it is treated with nefuramycin. They also use natural remedies to try to prevent the dreaded head conditions. In cases of infection, a combination of medicines from the vet are called into play. And of course, not to forget vitamins. 1 tablet is crushed between 2 spoons and added to a litre of water the day before basketing. Perfect hygiene. But even such sound medical care is a waste of time and effort without strict hygiene. Besides the daily scraping of the lofts, the routine includes a major clean-out once a year, and then every nook and cranny is given a thorough scrubbing down. Lifting up the floor covering reveals an accumulation of dirt. Sebastian tackles the last remaining dirt with a vacuum cleaner. It's all hands on deck. Each and every box is put out on the grass. Then they're given a rigorous going over. The loft walls are also thoroughly brushed down. In the meantime, Silver prepares a disinfectant solution with Negufon and Halamid for spraying all over the lofts. Halamid is a perfect disinfectant, which is also used in the meat industry. It is an ideal cleanser that is also completely odorless, which is important when using it in the lofts. Negufon is an excellent substance with long-lasting efficacy against those external parasites that can plague pigeons.